264, Robin Lewis's bill, vehicle laws, dedicated bus lanes. Oh, I'm sorry, do we need this for streaming? Okay.
Yep, I started.
We're streaming. Okay, well, all those that are here to watch the stream, it's March 15th at 1 o'clock, and this is the Environmental Transportation Motor Vehicle Subcommittee meeting, probably one of 3 or 4 meetings we're going to have this week. So with that said, House Bill 264, that's Delegate Lewis's bill, the vehicle dedicated bus lane enforcement. Patrick, is this bill in the same exact posture as last year?
Practically, yes. There's some tweaks, but the big difference is that it applies only in Baltimore City.
Okay, yeah, that's right. I remember talking with the delegate about that. That's absolutely.
The enforcement aspect of it.
And this is one of those bills that passed last year and sat in the Senate. Is that correct?
No, this didn't pass last year. It got co-voted.
It got, okay, yeah, okay.
It was House Bill 1432, which was an on-time bill, but that any numbers up there just withered.
Yeah, but I don't remember there being any controversy.
No, it wasn't.
Bill, other than there was a tiny bit of controversy outside, but I don't think it was more controversy, just more misunderstanding. But with the bill as amended, taking that piece out, making it a Baltimore City bill, I don't have any issues or conversation. Does anybody have?
Can I point out some amendments here?
Please do.
Well, if you go to page 4, there's the tactical amendment that was pointed out by DLS. Right there in line 6.
Systems.
The drafter, who was me, neglected to include bus lane monitoring systems, both in 4.1 and 1. And then on page 5, there's a sponsor amendment. And page 6, both reflecting the fact that transit vehicles are owned or operated and contracted for.
Right, to make sure there's no accidental. Okay.
So
I'll move to accept the amendments.
Second.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Conversation on the second. Any conversations on the amendments?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Delegate Lewis. I think we are about to pass the amendments on your bill.
Yeah.
Is there anything pertinent that you want to say on the amendments, Delegate Lewis?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee. I believe MDOT and Baltimore DOT are also on the line. I had a conversation with MDOT and Baltimore DOT, and one of the amendments proposed by MDOT related to a change in the citation fee. And before you vote, I want to make sure we bring this to your attention.
Okay, thank you.
And what we agreed on is that we want to we reject that amendment, that proposed change on the fee, and just leave it alone.
There's no change in the fee in the bill.
Okay, it was an amendment proposed by MDOT.
It's not in the amendment.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Also, one thing I want to point out is in the small statewide portion of this bill, prohibits people from driving in dedicated bus lanes, makes exceptions, the current bill for school buses, obviously transit buses, bicycles, emergency vehicles, and it adds a vehicle making a right turn at the next immediate intersection.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Based on that, Patrick, is there any need to talk about making a left turn? Because I know there are some roads, right? Or I don't know if they're going to be necessarily dedicated bus lanes, but there are some one-ways in Baltimore City. I don't know that much about Baltimore City, but I know I've been on some one-ways and you could be making a left.
I believe dedicated bus lanes are all to the right.
Yeah.
Okay. Liam, did you want to say something? Anybody from Baltimore City want to say anything about that?
No.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all on the right.
All right. Okay, is there any further conversation? Okay, so we have a first and a second on the amendments. All those in favor of the amendments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? On the bill, any conversation or discussion on the bill?
Move favorable.
Second.
We have a first and a second on the bill. Is there any conversation on the bill as amended? Okay, hearing none on the bill as amended, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Delegate Lewis.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee.
See ya.
I'm
Okay.
gonna go back to my own committee now. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Robin. Next
Bye.
one we have is House Bill 480. That's Delegate Barbay's bill. I know, Patrick, you've been working with the advocates to get the language just perfect to make us the shining environment, the shining electric vehicle star of the country, to make sure we get this right. How are you doing? I'm guessing we're good with it at this point.
Not quite, but I wanted to go through it and I wanted to get Mr. Hartman's thoughts here.
Okay.
The subcommittee. If you remember, we've amended this bill to change the defined term plug-in electric drive vehicle because the one that we were using from current law really didn't fit this parking space issue. We've also kind of stepped back and instead of defining spaces and markings and the like, just said, hey, do them consistent with state and federal law.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's pretty much it in terms of the amendments. Mr. Hartman, did you have some thoughts?
Yes, and I'd like to say Chelsea Sexton is here from California, who worked a lot on the California bill and probably has some input as well. But it's really important to get the definition of the vehicle right, and also the signs. In Howard County, even though we had this bill since 2014, there's, even with the police and the Department of Law, there was always a conversation, what is the sign? And this bill, as it stands now, uses the same wording for defining the sign as Howard County. And just want to work with Patrick to nail down and get more specific on what the signs need to say. And also I had a comment about the pavement markings. Originally this had green pavement markings, which was lifted from Washington State's bill, which I believe is the only state that had anything about requiring pavement markings. And their interpretation of that is the stripes on either side of the parking spot, instead of being white or yellow, would need to be green. Well, it turns out that that is not compliant with federal code. So
right.
They took that out, which just now leaves you with pavement markings in accordance with federal or state standards. And it turns out maybe there's no standards other than that. So I wonder if that can be struck altogether, since there's no standards to really refer to except for the color, and then that's been taken out.
Well, we need to stay in compliance with federal. Is that
Absolutely.
a problem, Patrick? If we don't?
Yeah, this is one of the issues that I will talk with Mr. Hartman about.
Okay. All right.
And this should be ready for the next voting session, which might be tomorrow.
And Chelsea, are you on the call?
Am indeed. Thanks for letting me crash your party.
Thanks for having you. Thanks for allowing you to join the call. For those of you that don't know, Lanny and I and Chelsea had a call about a month ago about the bill, and Chelsea and I geeked out on electric vehicles for about half an hour, and Lanny was very, very nice, and then we circled back to the subject matter. But if anybody's ever seen Who Killed the Electric Car, you'll recognize Chelsea in there, right?
Yes.
She's been a leader on electric cars, so it was a pretty cool conversation. Anyway, that's all I had. Chelsea, is there anything you'd like to add? Again, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you'd like to add? Does this get us to the point where you're comfortable that we don't make a mistake?
I second all of Lanny's comments, and I would be happy to chat more later this afternoon on specific language. But certainly, to the extent that over the last 25 years I've been doing this, many of the bills and many of the ways in which there's been skin knees with EV drivers is around that definition, so that it specifically addresses plug-in vehicles in a way that can't be gamed. Simply having a battery that can be recharged by an external source could be an engine block heater, or the engine on a gasoline Prius, or a fuel cell.
Or
So
an
we
ice
need
vehicle,
to, yeah, exactly. So we need to get some grid rechargeable type language into that. And then same thing on the signage. For all of the bills, none of them help if there isn't signage, and none of them can be enforced without signage. But even though we've had some federal conversations over the years, the federal requirement is not specific enough to provide really effective language on the signage and therefore enforcement. And the opportunities here are in part to prevent gas cars parking in EV spaces, also to help educate new EV drivers that just frankly aren't up on the culture yet and how to share chargers and things like that. And then lastly, to help grow adoption, because people who don't yet have EVs don't realize what these things are as they drive past them. And so they think, God, I'll never get an EV. There's nowhere to charge it. So even the signage helps make them more consistently visible in a way that gives people reassurance towards going electric. So I realize this bill started in a specific place, but the potential for its good can be much broader with a little bit of tweaking. Thank you.
That is great. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Are there any questions? The only thing that I know is on my homework, which I did do, Patrick, as I did circle back with BG&E about their signage. And I know they're looking into it to make sure they're uniform, to see if there's anything that we need. They may have a friendly amendment. I'll wait to circle back on that as well. I'll talk to Mr. Washington. Ann.
Yeah, I just have a question about the application of the bill. Will it also apply on private, like parking lots, like grocery stores and even
Yes.
city parking lots and such, so that signage will be uniform wherever you are? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what the bill is looking to accomplish, and that's kind of where we are on a sticking point, trying to make sure that that works in the private parking lots.
So, I mean, on a private parking lot, I guess they don't need to worry about whether they paint the lines green or whatever.
Yes, they do.
They
They
do.
do.
Yeah.
Because it's a private lot open to the public.
Right.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Like think about Giant or, any of the big shopping centers.
Yep. No, I see them all the time. Yeah. But they do have green stripes at the Whole Foods in Riverdale Park.
That's very nice. But that's very, very nice. And it's great, but it is going to conflict with the
So they'll have to make a change.
Yeah. At
Okay.
some point, they'll have to go out with a white paintbrush instead of a green one.
That's fine. Not a problem. Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you, Delegate Healy. Any other questions? Yes. Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. So I'm sitting here thinking you were talking about how specific to make the language on the definition. Now, explain how the police are going to be able to interpret all this specific information for enforcement reasons. I mean, are they going to have like an index card says this one's qualified, this one's not qualified? I mean, I just look at there being a problem with interpreting the specific definition. That's all. I'm just looking at it from that perspective.
No, and Delegate Jacobs, I think it's a good
Enforcement,
point.
from an enforcement side.
Yeah, and what I would say is, I think it's a good question, because I think some of us that are kind of into EVs are going to look at the car and we're going to know whether it's an EV or not. But that's a really good question. I don't know, Chelsea or Lanny, if you or anybody else has any ideas on that aspect. It's a good question.
It's definitely part of the discussion.
Yeah.
I would say that it's an absolutely fair question, especially as more and more plug-in vehicles come on the market. The specific language to address the eligibility of the vehicles is somewhat separate from the enforcement of the spaces themselves, which is also why the signage becomes crucial, because the signage needs to say things like while charging. And so therefore part of the assistance with enforcement is to some degree whether or not the vehicle is actively plugged into whatever charger is in that space, which helps quite a bit with identification. It either can or cannot be, but it also gives the site some flexibility in how and how much they want to enforce, because not all sites want to do it the same way. And so the goal here is to put enough specificity in to prevent gaming where possible, but also to leave some flexibility for the different types of sites across the state to decide exactly how and with whom they want to do enforcement.
So essentially, if whoever is coming up to enforce it, because the vehicle will have to be plugged in, the way the dead giveaway there is, you're going to have an electric plug plugged into a car. And if it's not, they're in violation. If it is, then they're clear.
Typically, and you know, there can be some exceptions. Some sites like to put a charger between two spots so that the two cars can share and maximize that asset. So that's part of why we want to leave a little bit of flexibility and not require connectivity per se. But if the scope is while charging, then sites can add to that language. So we're going for the most basic language that can apply to all sites, and then sites can always add additional parameters with time limits and monetization and other things.
Does that answer your question, Delegate Jacobs?
Well, you know, I'm just looking at, I understand that the importance of specificity of it for the vehicle. I'm just looking at it from the practicality of it, of enforcing it. And I understand that, you know, it's got to be plugged in, yada, 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 but it's, you know, I try to look at both sides of this. So to the person that's not EV savvy like you guys, you know, are they going to understand all the specificity and not be an argument or a problem at that particular parking site? That's all. But it's going to have to be a lot of verbiage on the sign, I guess.
Well, you know, we're in the middle of transitioning, so I don't know what else. I don't know, Lanny, if you have anything or anybody else has anything to add.
Yeah, one thing's for sure is the person driving the vehicle knows for sure that their vehicle is not capable of charging when they pull into there. And that's the main thing that we're trying to accomplish, is just discouraging this. And right now the signs are kind of, they're not very specific. People, sometimes there's just no sign. Sometimes the sign just says electric vehicle charging station. Well, okay, it's empty. I'm just going to pull my my truck in here.
Yeah, and I
So,
think that
you know,
Delegate Jacobs, I think some of this has kind of come to where it is now because there have been cases where, like one case comes to mind where I think it was like 4 to 6 pickup trucks intentionally parked in an EV charging section with, I think, like 6 spots, and they took all of the spots specifically because they thought it was funny. And they did it for no other reason other than they didn't like electric cars or they thought it was funny or whatever. And then the term icing came up because they're ICE cars. And they just kind of said, okay, well, you're icing these spots. And then people showed up and of course they couldn't charge. They were, you know, on vacation with their kids or off to work and they needed it. And that's part of what happened. But I remember seeing something about 2 years ago where the pictures kind of made their way around the EV world with a bunch of pickups just took up all the spots and just left their trucks there all day just to be that's to a degree.
Listen, I understand that part of the abuse side of it. I'm sure that's, you know, partially what's behind the bill. I'm just trying to look at it from being able to enforce something fairly easily without it being complex and you know, police or whoever doing the enforcing to need another course and, you know, definition of a specific EV, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And so, you know, that's just really my concern. But I do have one follow-up question for you EV savvy people. Can you, I don't know the answer to this, can you hook an adapter up to a charger for another purpose? Say, so let's just say you want to charge up your batteries in the back of your vehicle with a charger. Is there an adapter that you could hook up to that plug-in that would, you know, work for that purpose?
No.
Okay.
There are a couple of adapters to allow one type of EV to use a charger made for another type of EV. Mostly it's a Tesla issue, but there is not currently any way to export power from a charger to something else. In part because the vehicle and the charger itself has a specialized communication that links up before it allow any power to flow anyway. So even if tomorrow someone made an adapter to use for accessory batteries for another purpose, it wouldn't have the same communications as a car. And so therefore the charger wouldn't recognize it and it wouldn't work.
Well, that answers that question. Thank you very much.
Sure.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more questions, we are going to hold the bill until we get some answers back from BG&E and the utilities as well as the final language here. we'll move to the next bill. Is that good?
Lanny, I'll be in touch later.
Okay, Patrick.
Thank you, Lanny, and
Thank you.
So good to see both of you. Thank you.
And Chelsea, hopefully we can get you too.
Perfect. I look forward to it.
And if anybody has any interest, go watch Who Killed the Electric Car and go see Chelsea. I'm sorry, I just think it's the coolest thing ever. Bye. Okay, so there we are on House Bill 480, House Bill 626, Prince George's County's vehicle height monitoring systems. So for those of you that remember, we passed a Baltimore County bill out last year, and I think previously a Baltimore City bill. So the objective at this point is to amend the current Prince George's County bill to look as close as possible to the Baltimore County bill, just from enforcement mechanisms across the state, to just try to keep it as close to the same as possible. We do have some more work to do to that bill, and I have a couple of calls to make. But I think Patrick has been working on some amendments, and I think it's really worthy of our conversation. Patrick, do you want to talk about some of the amendments?
Well, we have the delegation amendments that are setting up a work group. The truckers opposed those amendments mainly because they're not included like they were with Baltimore City, which did the meetings before they ever came with any legislation.
Right.
Baltimore County, which agreed to do the work group between the truckers and the county before they implemented any of the cameras. That's the bill that you were referring to from last year.
And I did talk to the truckers. I talked to Louis Campion this morning, and I think they won't have any issue with this bill as long as it's in the same posture as the Baltimore or very similar. They just had so much buy-in on the Baltimore County one. They want to make sure that it's as close to that one as possible. And
there's another issue to deal with. Delegate Learman referenced it in a private conversation with me earlier, is that how do you want to deal with municipalities? Baltimore County and Baltimore City obviously don't have any municipalities. Prince George's County has quite a few municipalities.
Yeah.
I think that's why, I think that was this bill, sorry, can I?
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry. I was just thinking, that I think that is my understanding where the Delegate Williams and the delegation did, they adopted this amendment and it has the support of all the municipalities. But then there's the thing that it's missing that I don't know that it affects municipalities, just MMTA.
Yeah, just thinking College Park is the first one that comes to mind.
Well, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we
the
have
huge one.
27 municipalities in Prince George's County.
Yeah.
But that is an issue that the subcommittee might want to consider as to whether municipalities do speed cameras and probably
They do.
cameras.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if this is appropriate or not. It's up to the subcommittee. But the motor trucker issue is the big one.
Is there a reason to, I guess, I have found it helpful to have MMTA's feedback. This is a huge issue in my district, and MMTA has been helpful in helping us try to figure out how to address this. So I guess we have Delegate Williams on, or Delegate Healy or Delegate Harrison. Is there a concern about having MMTA on the group?
Mr. Chair, if I can speak, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
No, there isn't a concern with having MTA as part of the work group. We did amend the bill to clarify that local jurisdiction does include not just the county, but the municipal entities within Prince George's County, because we do have, as Delegate Healy said, 27 of them. And we did amend the bill to include a work group as well as to include an exception for certain vehicles for the work group to address exempting certain vehicles from residential roads, just based on the conversations that we did have with Mr. Chapman, which are valid concerns to allow Amazon trucks and things of that nature, UPS trucks on access residential roads, and we wholeheartedly agree with that. And so that was what the amendments were hoping to address, were all of those concerns there, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
That's helpful. So yeah, I think, if the big thing that's really different is that TA isn't on it and they're fine with adding MMTA, then it seems like we could amend the amendment to
Yeah.
add MMTA and make sure there, there was also some uncodified language that Delegate Williams just referenced, I think, to make sure that there's a process for allowing trucks to get through. And I think there was that uncodified language from Baltimore County, so we could just maybe steal that.
Yeah. we're not reinventing
And
the
then, I think this is an important issue, and we should, so if we can amend it and pass it, I support that.
All right. Any other conversations?
One thing to remember with these is that there's a lot of false positives.
Right. Well, and that's why it's important to have that uncodified language so that, like Delegate Williams said, they can address how to make sure that those false positives, are the trucking companies and the company, the companies who are bringing stuff in have a way to just easily say, here, don't have to pay that.
Yeah, because it's significant, but it's getting better, right, Patrick? I remember years ago, they're getting better is what I'm saying.
Haven't heard the complaints we heard a couple years ago.
Yeah, that was really,
Yeah.
really bad a few years back. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so is there any other conversation on the big issues here, or Patrick, do you want to work on those amendments and then we'll?
Try to mirror Baltimore County.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take care of that. Have it ready for the next meeting.
Mirror, but
That's
keep
great,
in the
'cause I did-
municipalities section
Yes.
of it. Yeah.
Yes.
And like I said, I talked with Lewis this morning, and I think he's pretty good with all of that.
I am on, Mr. Chairman, just listening in, just so you know. And yes, nothing you have said gives us concern. We just we understand the addition of the municipalities and the different governance structure. We're just trying to have the agencies go through the same steps that others have done beforehand.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Delegate Healy.
Yeah, if there are any substantive changes that we take back to the delegation, let us know quickly so we can take care of that.
I will. We will. Okay. Any other questions? We're going to hold it for those amendments. Good. Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay. So the next one is House Bill 941. That's Delegate Wells's bill. It's the Baltimore City speed limit establishment bill. I've been talking with the chair last week, and I know that I've been talking with Delegate Wells and Delegate Learman, and I texted a little bit with Delegate Boyce, but we never really caught back up. So I know this is an important bill for Baltimore City, and I think we should, like I said, I've talked with the chair about it as well. We should talk about it right now to see. I guess one of the concerns or one of the amendments offered was from Delegate Terraza about the ability to lower the speed limit, but not necessarily raise the speed limit, which seems to be that happened in actually the committee hearing, which seems like a good idea to me. But I'd really be interested to hear from the delegates that represent Baltimore City what their thoughts on the bill, and so Delegate Boyce, since we haven't.
I was surprised about. I was very surprised about the concern of Baltimore City being able to manage its own speed limits. Certainly respect Delegate Terraza, but the point of the bill wasn't. I understand the assumption, like we could potentially do that, but the point of the bill is kind of to do the opposite, and I'm not sure why Baltimore City would increase speed limits anywhere. So
That's part of your complete streets too, right?
Yeah.
Correct. So yeah. So I understand there was also a concern about engineering and plans yeah, but the thing is that they've already been done per complete streets, and so it's all taken from there. So there's this idea that we're going to put up speed limits without any surveying or plans, or but it's already kind of been done. We're trying to implement these speeds per that plan. So
yeah, can I just
yeah, go ahead, Brooke.
Great. I agree with everything Delegate Boyce said, and I'll just add that I think the city engaged in extensive work on its complete streets. This is not just sort of a slapdash, manual that's been put together. It's been years in the making, adopted by regulation. The creation of it in and of itself is, was a city ordinance that was passed. So also just, I think, if there's concern about it if the concern is about the speed limit being raised, I know Liam has written that, they're open to just ensuring that that the bill addresses the speed limit being lowered and allows for allows the city to do this without an engineering study to lower it. I will say also this legislation does not preclude the city from doing an engineering study. So if they are in a position where they're like, this is an important intersection, or like, we need to figure out why traffic isn't flowing well here, like they're probably still going to do an engineering study, right? But on, like my street or a lot of the streets in the city where it's very clear that like 25 miles per hour should not be the speed limit and like it should be lower, then they won't have to go through an extensive and expensive engineering study to make the roadway safer for pedestrians and non-drivers. So, I think I very much support the bill. If we need to put on an amendment that says that this is for lowering the speed limit, my only ask would be that specify that, for instance, if 25 miles per hour, right? Is it 25 miles per hour right now, the lowest they can go on a road?
It depends. It depends. If it's an urban area, then it can be lower, actually.
Liam, what is it in the city now?
The default speed limit where it's not posted is 25 miles per hour.
Right. So I guess my ask would be that if the city wanted to raise, the engineering study would be required if the city ever wanted to raise above 25 miles per hour, because that's the default wherever, there's no speed limit sign posted on my tiny little alley street. Because of that, the speed limit is 25 miles per hour, right? So if they wanted to raise it above 25 miles per hour, which would never happen, but if they wanted to do that, they would have to do an engineering study. So that makes sense to me, but. Anyway.
And Patrick, we have precedent where we have done this in two other jurisdictions slightly differently, one similar and one slightly different, right? We have Montgomery County. And what was the other county, Charles? What was it?
Montgomery was for the whole county, and it did require an engineering study.
It did, right?
Calvert, we did last year and did not require an engineering study for a small little portion of the county.
Right. And I think one of the big differences here is that Baltimore City has put together their complete streets plan and a lot of energy and effort to kind of lay a lot of this stuff out, which I don't know, Patrick or anybody else, if any of the other jurisdictions have gone that deep. I know Montgomery County is working on its kind of zero plan, but I don't know if it is nearly as detailed as Baltimore City's plan. So Delegate Healy.
Yeah, I think this is a great bill, and I don't think we need to amend it. I think that we can just give Baltimore City the authority to do what they need to do to protect their own streets. But I did want to ask, please, if I could get a copy of the study, because some of my municipalities are very interested in trying to do something. They don't even know the term complete streets, but what they're describing is what that would be. So I'd love to be able to share it with them.
Great. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank
Healy.
you, Delegate Healy. I was going to
Yeah.
make the same suggestion.
That's great.
Yeah, that might be really good for MoCo too. I just don't know where MoCo is right now, if it's, Vision Zero. I don't know if it's, my guess is I don't know if it's as far along as Baltimore City is. Baltimore City sounds to me like it's pretty far down the tracks here. Okay.
So would it be appropriate
to
move favorable on the bill?
Hold on one second, Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Delegate Harrison.
So
We'll just, yeah.
I just asked.
Yeah.
let me just say, with the lack of engineering, how does that work with red light, traffic lights? So if you want to change the speeds on specific streets, who's in charge of the timing of like traffic signals? Because certainly the flow in many jurisdictions is tied to, traffic signals are tied to certain factors so that it keeps a flow going easily or not so easily. And so when you go arbitrarily changing streets speeds, wouldn't that affect the timing? And I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate. It's a local bill, and I'm not trying to kill a local bill. I'm just trying to ask a question.
Well, I'm going to pitch that to Liam. Liam, would you be the best person to
Sure.
answer that?
I think that's a great question. And, this is all actually incorporated in the Complete Streets Manual, and everyone has picked great timing to request a copy because at 4:30 today, they're taking a vote to adopt it. So I'll be sending an email to all the city council members and all of the city delegation. And Mr. Chair, I'll make sure you get a copy of the final copy as well.
That's today.
Yes, that's today. We'll be emailing that out this afternoon. And specific to Delegate Jacobs' question, great question. Signal timing in Baltimore City is done out of our traffic division in this specifically by the signal section. So they evaluate what the effective timing for a specific intersection should be. And in the Complete Streets Manual, there's recommendations on signal timing. My limited understanding of this is that they'll probably increase the frequency in terms of how the lights change so that there's more signal changes than there are now, so that cars aren't racing to hit the signal because they have to wait there for like a minute. They might change every 30 seconds. So signal timing plays a huge role. And there are engineers, traffic engineers specifically within a section of the traffic division. And their sole job is traffic signals.
Yeah, I understand. And I know that, even over here in the rural areas, we have to deal with all the Ocean City traffic, and weekends coordination with lights is real important. And I don't know how you could do it without study. And so
can I interject again? I think what's been a little frustrating is that the assumption is that Baltimore City kind of threw a plan together based on a literature review and then decided that this was the best way for us to go, when in actuality, it's the opposite. A lot of this engineering was done during this plan, which kind of sets the format. So it doesn't mean that there will never, ever, ever be any engineering studies if there needs to be. But what it does, it just sets a baseline, at least, to know that here's a guideline based on what we've already done. I think there's this assumption that this plan is going to be looked at and just never, ever, ever, ever again is there ever going to be an engineering and or any traffic studies. So I guess I'm just trying to say that the plan is the guide, but it doesn't keep the city from ever doing any engineer studies. It just doesn't.
It's a living policy document.
I mean, yes, it's not fixed.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Does that answer your question, Delegate Jacobs?
Fine with me.
Okay. So the only other one that's been brought to my attention recently is the idea, and I want to kind of go through it with the subcommittee to see what everybody thinks. The idea, if there's a lowering of the speed limit, and then at some point there is a speed camera that gets put into that same location, should there, and I don't know that I have the answer to this, which is why we're talking about it, should there be required some kind of study at the point of putting a speed camera into that location? And again, I'm just here for conversation, so I'm happy to chat about it. I don't know what that looks like. I mean, if we lower the speed limit and then the city wants to put in a camera, then what does that mean?
Well, I think, doesn't that mean, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I know, at least here in Prince George's County, before any cameras are put in, there's always some sort of an evaluation as to whether or not a camera is warranted. And so would that not be the same regardless of whether the speed limit were lowered or if it were, 25 miles an hour?
I talked to Patrick a little bit about this morning. Patrick, did you have anything to add on that aspect of the question that's come up, or what are your thoughts?
Oh, on Delegate Harrison's point, I don't think that you're required to do that analysis. It's smart of the county to do that, of course, but I don't think the law requires that. I'll check into that. I think the concern is that, some sort of nefarious government somewhere, just lowers the speed limit without an engineering study and then plops a speed camera right there.
I think,
But you have to put a sign, I mean,
Can
you
hold
could
on?
lower the speed limit.
Everybody hold on.
Oh, sorry.
That's just a concern.
Who's concerned? Who's concerned?
It's
Hold-
a concern that was raised.
Yeah, can everybody hold on for a second, please? Please, Delegate Healy.
thank you. I think we as statewide addressed this a while ago when we set a minimum, because when the speed cameras first went in for school zones, there were some schools where they dropped the speed limit to 15 miles an hour on a steep hill, and it was not reasonable. So we did set a statewide minimum of 20 miles per hour for a speed camera zone. So that's already the law. I don't know that we need to go any further than that. It applies all the time. You can't put a speed camera if the speed limit's below 20 miles an hour.
Okay. Does anybody else want to talk about this particular issue? I'm not wed to it one way or the other. I'm just trying to get out there so we can have a conversation about it. Delegate Learman? No, okay.
No, I mean, I think it feels like there's already a law, so that should handle the situation. I don't know if Liam has anything else to add, but I think that it seems like there's already a law, because speed cameras are in all different types of zones, all different types of speed limit zones, right? We have speed cameras in zones where it's 40 miles an hour all the way down to 20. So, if the speed limit's going to change on a street from 35 miles an hour to 20 miles per hour, they're going to put a sign up that says, because otherwise people won't know to drive that slowly.
Right, and they won't be able to enforce it. Okay,
Right.
Liam, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I think, and Delegate Harrison mentioned Prince George's County, and I believe our ATVS division is the same way. We comprehensively study these areas. When we get requests in for automated speed enforcement, we just don't plop them down. We do put out data cameras, and the vendors go and evaluate, what's the 85th percentile speed and all that stuff. That will continue.
Okay, so
I should have said that. I should have known that, because people in my district are always asking for speed cameras, and I'm like, why is this taking so long? And it's because they have to do all these studies.
It takes a few months.
Yeah.
When we get a request in, that evaluation period takes several months.
Okay, I think those are all really good answers. So let's I guess the best thing to do at this point, because it would be, Patrick, let's draft the amendment to, for not going up, but just going down. And then we'll hold the
you can draft it. I will vote against that amendment. I think it feels like, for some reason, this is being more scrutinized than anyone else who's already kind of done this. I think we said that the amendment those amendments aren't needed. I mean, if you want to draft them and we want to vote on them, that's fine. I don't want to stop that process, but I just think
Delegate Boyce, I'm doing the best that I can right now. Okay, so what I think we could do is we'll hold the bill to the next voting session. If we don't have support for the amendment, great, we don't have support for the amendment. I don't disagree with you. Believe me when I tell you, I'm doing the best I can right now. So we'll draft the amendment. We'll hold it for the very next voting session. If everybody likes the amendment, great. If we don't, we'll vote it down, and then we'll vote on the bill as amended.
Can you tell me again what the amendment will do? What is it going to do?
It would be Jen Terraza brought up a concern, and
right.
Delegate Love isn't here, and she brought up concerns too. So I'm just trying to weigh all the pieces here so that we can get this bill, so we can get this bill out, because I know,
Okay.
it's important,
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is that good, Patrick? Did you have anything else that you need to add on it, or is that?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Cecil County Delegation, which is 1329, Mail and Transportation Authority. Okay, that's the moving of the Easy Pass turnstile over. That had a pretty massive fiscal note. I don't know.
Move unfavorable.
Okay. Is there a second?
By the way, this is not a local delegation bill.
Right.
Yeah.
It's on a major highway.
Can you could you just remind us what this does? I thought I knew, and then I just looked it up, and now I'm second guessing myself on what this bill does.
Basically, it takes the JFK Highway toll plaza that's in southern Cecil County, right over the Susquehanna.
Right.
Says, don't do any improvements on it. When it's obsolete, move it here.
Oh, okay.
To the
Yes.
Delaware side of.
To the Delaware side. Now I remember it. Yes. I will say, I think it has become problematic that between Cecil County and Hartford County, you have to pay to get back and forth all the time. Like, I think it's
They have the Hayden
problematic for the
Bridge, too.
businesses.
There
Yeah.
are other
That's
roads.
the part I didn't get.
Yeah. I just put that out there, is that I think it's sort of it's tough for business owners and residents, but I'll second the unfavorable.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. So
Yeah, just so everybody knows, I looked, it's 7.2 million. The fiscal note is 7.2 million. Go ahead.
I guess I thought that the whole idea was to move it so that you didn't have that issue between Hartford and Cecil. And so tell me again what the amendment will do.
Not aware of an amendment on this bill.
I'm sorry.
I'm not aware of any amendments on this.
There
bill.
is no amendment.
I
I'm
thought,
aware of either.
I'm sorry.
No, we're on the
Okay.
bill as itself. So the bill has a $7.2 million fiscal note, because moving the turnstiles would be pretty expensive.
Down the road, it goes up to like 82 million annually.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't,
If we're doing any discussion about tolling, Delegate or Mr. Chair, over the next, over the summer, if we're working with MDTA or having a discussion, I think it would be worth bringing in some of the local leaders from Cecil County and Hartford County to talk about if there are solutions we could come up with to the folks getting back and forth. I
agree.
I think it is problematic for the business. There's so much inter-county commerce. And I think that the toll is a drain on that inter-county commerce. So to the extent that MDTA would be open to looking at sort of a locals pass, or, I think it would be worth talking with them.
Yeah, I think so too. And there are examples of other places in the state, like Montgomery County on the ICC has like multiple stops as well. But I think that's fair. I will tell you, Delegate Crisbill has done a really great job of invoking a lot of conversation, really good conversation. There was a call this morning, and Delegate Learman, you and I have talked about some other opportunities. So I'm happy to do that. We have a first. We just need do we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. All of those voting favorably for the unfavorable on this bill, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Two opposed.
Go
ahead, Doug.
I'm part of the Cecil delegation. And I can tell you this conversation has been taking place since I've been a delegate with Cecil County, multiple members of Cecil County government, because you can't leave Cecil County without paying a toll.
Yep.
Bottom line, if you live in Cecil County, you have to pay a toll to go anywhere. And there's very few places that are like that. So it is a problem. There's been promises made for years, 11 years that I know of, that there's been very little help.
Yep.
When you talk about local exceptions, and you get into the whole bonding issue and you know, you can't do that. So it's a problem. And, you know, been some promises made, but not promises kept. But
Well,
anyhow,
why don't we do this? I think
I'll vote against it just because I'm part of the Cecil delegation. I know the problem exists.
Well,
So what I would say, Delegate Jacobs, is if you'd like, when we get through session in the interim, you know, we can like put together a little, you know, some kind of work group to try to push this to the next level and try to see if there's some other solutions that that we can come up with, because 11 years, yeah.
Well,
It's
we've had multiple administrations and multiple
Yep.
members of Cecil delegation or Cecil County government. And the problem is exactly the same. It's been kick the barrel down the road, not the can.
It's actually older than that, because back in the day when I was the vice chair Ways and Means and these bills came to Ways and Means, Delegate Rudolph was from Cecil County, put that bill in.
Yeah.
I'm back. That was back in the late 90s, I think.
okay, but so
Okay.
then the question then becomes is how long are we going to keep having a conversation?
Right.
If it's a problem, if it's a problem and actually I had not actually voiced it, but if it's a problem, it's been going on this long. I realize that there's a good sized fiscal note to it, but those residents are asking for some relief, and they've been asking and continue to ask. And at some point, I think that, the right thing to do would be to give them some relief.
I agree. So I will
We're getting there.
I will talk to the, I guess the Cecil County delegation, or particularly that delegate, and try and put something together, as opposed to just getting the bill in again next year and doing the same thing all over again.
Yeah.
Okay. Last on our list is House Bill 1330, Delegate Ampering Vehicle Laws, Towing Charges and Abandoned Vehicles. Patrick, can you refresh us? Because I remember there was some concern about towing charges going up, and I don't know if that was ever resolved. Just give us a quick overview.
Well, for starters, yes, my reading of the bill is that towing charges would go up. I mean, it says towing or removal of a vehicle from a public right-of-way, which is a police tow, shall be twice the amount of the total fees normally charged for a police tow. And so, yes, I think that's a mistake. I don't think that's the intent, but that's what it does. The big thing on this bill, though, is that this bill allows private citizens, like if you get in an accident, you get your vehicle towed, you're in a hospital 3 days, get out, and they've sold your vehicle. Right now, the only people who can sell impounded vehicles are the police, and this gives it to private persons. We've had this bill before. It's never gotten anywhere.
So can you back up for a second? And I missed what you said. If the only ones that can sell the vehicle would be the police department. If the
No,
police
that's current law.
vehicle- That's current law.
Correct.
Okay. Other questions?
This bill would allow anybody whose property the car is on.
And why would we want this? I have to turn to the Baltimore City committee members in case I'm missing something.
Well, this is a statewide bill.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Okay.
Okay.
Well, I can move unfavorable.
Well, you know what I'd like, okay, is that?
Could we hold it so we could talk to Delegate
Can I hold for a
Ampering?
second? Can everybody please? Before we move unfavorable, what I would like to do, if it's okay with the committee, the subcommittee, is just hold the bill. That way, we can talk to our brand new delegate, and I can kind of explain some things and see if he would like to have the opportunity to withdraw the bill, since this is his very first bill in our committee, is what I'm trying to say. I think that's what you were saying too, right, Delegate Learman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying too.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, great.
We're of one mind here.
Yeah. I remember my first days. God, oh my God. Okay, so I think we're done. I did want to touch base again, just for conversation, because you guys know, and a lot of these